Hi, my name is Neil, and I'll be showing you a quick tour of Eduventra, which is a new way to turn any business concept into hands-on practice using AI. It doesn't replace your course, it adds a dimension where students actually do what they're learning. So let's go through some mock-ups and an example of how it works as told through a story called The Product Feature That Changed Everything. Ready? Let's go. Scene 1, the instructor flow. Meet Blake. He teaches an online PM course to students, mostly product managers and entrepreneurs, who are also working professionals. Blake is interested in designing a short, active learning experience for his class using Eduventra to help his students get a feel for applying course concept to a real-world scenario. He logs in on the instructor page, and on the setup page, he starts by describing the scenario. Students are senior PMs at Streamflow. They must choose the next major investment with limited resources, conflicting stakeholder opinions, and competitive pressure. He then adds his learning outcomes based on what he wants students to take away, and then he assigns weights, which will determine how the scoring will work. Choose between solo or team mode to add in some friendly competition, and Blake decides to keep the number of rounds to 1 for now, but he can always make it more complex by adding more rounds as an option. So then he hits create, and in seconds, Eduventra dynamically creates the experience for him. To start, he sees that some key artifacts have been generated for students to read through and analyze before making their decisions. Firstly, the user research dashboard shows that 47% of users complain about complexity, session length is dropping 12%, but here's the tension. 19 customers mentioned they pay 40% more for mobile capability. Blake then reviews the competitive intelligence brief showing FlowState just launched the mobile first and is specifically targeting the mid-market segment, which represents 41% of the user base. Meanwhile, SimpleFlow is growing 40% month over month by promising 5-minute setup versus hour to hour onboarding. Finally, the internal email thread shows classic startup tensions. Sales pushing for mobile after losing a major deal, engineering warning that mobile needs 8 months of platform work first, and the CEO demanding growth metrics for the upcoming board meeting and fundraising round. Blake likes what he's seeing. He senses these artifacts are detailed but not overwhelming for students to analyze. Next, he sees a decision interface for students to provide their recommendations. Overall, which features should be prioritized? How should budget be allocated across platform and customer experience and growth? Who has the most experience in influencing this decision? And explain your reasoning section. At any point, he can make adjustments and preview what it'll feel like from the perspective of students. When ready, Blake hits publish and a join code is automatically generated for his students to join the experience and get started. Let's move on to scene 2, the student experience. Meet Sarah. She's a product manager at a startup in real life where things are messy. And her CEO has just asked her, which feature should we prioritize next? She's overwhelmed by the question and doesn't know where to start. Fortunately, Sarah is a student in Blake's PM class and is about to experience Eduventra. She logs in on the student page using the join code, and after learning she's on Team Alpha, she and her team will review the artifacts that Blake had already previously created, as well as the decision interface. Then they go ahead and get started. This is where the magic really begins. Sarah and the rest of her team engage in the experience, analyzing the data, discussing, collaborating, and making decisions that put them in the driver's seat. They'll have debates along the way, and as we'll get into next, they have the benefit of learning why their strategies worked or not, and how it compares to other teams. Once Sarah and her team are done and they add all their entries in, they hit submit as all the other teams enter their submissions as well. Eduventra automatically generates class performance insights, ready-made discussion questions for Blake to facilitate a class reflection, as well as team spotlights. Notice how Sarah and Team Alpha was the only one to focus on platform modernization. They read that engineering said mobile needs 8 months of platform work and concluded that the foundation had to come first. On the other hand, Team Delta spread their $10 million evenly across all categories and scored the lowest. They ignored the user research showing that 47% complexity complaints and the competitive threat of SimpleFlow's simplified onboarding. Every strategic pattern becomes a teaching moment with very little prep time for Blake. Now, just imagine if Sarah had this experience before being asked which feature to prioritize by her CEO. She'd already have made the tough resource allocation decisions under pressure, analyzed stakeholder tensions, and learned from seeing what strategies actually worked. Hopefully, this gives you a better idea of how Eduventra turns any business concept into hands-on practice using AI. While we're still in private beta, we'd love for you to try out the platform and give any feedback. So please head over to eduventralearning.com to learn more. Thank you.